So, Fallout 4 released, and 2 days later I felt terribly ill. Still am, actually, as you can undoubtedly hear from my voice. I personally blame radiation poisoning. Regardless, this video had to happen sooner or later, so without further ado, here it is. My thoughts on Fallout 4. This video will be spoiler-free, both gameplay and audio-wise, so you're safe here. Also, everything in this video is utterly and completely subjective. This video is in no way saying you need to agree with this. You are in fact fully entitled to disagree, but please do so civilly or else I won't reply to you. And let's be honest, without my approval, what's your life worth? Wait, shit, that's totally the antithesis of what I've been saying, isn't it? Opinions on Fallout 4 have been divided. From people saying it shits on the legacy of Fallout to people saying it's the best thing since the invention of the atom bomb. Oh wait, nobody says that. Since the invention of sliced bread. Anyways, people love it and hate it. This is evidenced by the game's 78% user rating on Steam. Marvelous? No, but certainly respectable. Now, as a quick disclaimer, I haven't finished the game's main story, mainly because I feel like I have no incentive to. So if that's your criteria for whether or not I should be allowed to talk about the game, turn off now. What I have done is explored a lot of the map and done a whole lot of things in it. In essence, no, I'm not coming to you inexperienced. So that being said, what are my views on the game? Well, it is good, maybe even great, but to me it's far from Game of the Year material. Now that that's established and the Bethesda drones have left their dislikes, let's move on to why I think that. Let's go over what the game does well first. First and foremost, the area this game improves upon its predecessors most is without a doubt the shooting. It's far better than Fallout 3 in New Vegas, and VATS doesn't have to be relied upon as a crutch anymore. The guns feel solid, and their sound design is excellent. In addition, the flexible gunsmithing system ensures that you build a gun that will most definitely suit your playstyle. Watching enemies' heads and limbs explode into giblets is an infinitely entertaining experience. VATS also feels quite nice, and watching your bullets slow-mo through enemies is perversely entertaining. All in all, the combat in this game is quite enjoyable, especially for Bethesda, who aren't exactly known for making very enjoyable combat systems. Is it groundbreaking? No. Play any FPS or third-person shooter, although I would strongly recommend fighting in first-person, and it'll be the same old with VATS added onto it, but it is functional and it is enjoyable. Secondly, the aesthetic. Now, for you plebeians, this doesn't mean graphical fidelity, it means the art style and design of the game. I've always loved the Elder Scrolls because I'm a sucker for any and all things high fantasy, but Fallout has always been Bethesda's best gaming franchise for me. Where Bethesda seems to struggle making characters that deviate from the average fantasy norm in Elder Scrolls, although Skyrim was the worst offender by far and the other Elder Scrolls games do have unique aspects, everything is derivative of one fantasy trope or another. In contrast, everything about Fallout and its universe oozes authenticity. The character design, the weapon and armor design, the world design, all of it is absolutely astounding. If there's one thing that's kept me playing Fallout 4, it's the sense of self the game brings to the world it inhabits. Thirdly, the crafting. The gunsmithing and armor smithing are great in Fallout 4. Want to be sneaky? Mod your armor so enemies can't hear you walking and your bracers somehow magically steady your hands when scoped in. Want to go in guns blazing or sword slashing? Equip your nuclear katana with a stun pack and wade through enemies like a hot knife through butter. Bethesda has always been good about making your gameplay style matter, and Fallout 4 is no exception. The perk system, which I'll throw in here, only adds to this, letting you ensure that whatever you're good at, you're really fucking good at. Fourthly, the base building. Bethesda tricked us with this one, but it was a good trick. Instead of your own humble shack to customize as portrayed in the gameplay teasers, you can renovate entire neighborhoods. In addition, there's an absurd amount of customization available in the base building, making it enjoyable to say the least. The base building provides that illusion of companion player connectivity that these kinds of RPGs so often lack, and in that, it is something to be lauded. Now, there are some other things that the game does well that I'll lump together. I found the companions to be enjoyable and they seamlessly meld into your little group of settlers. Does it become totally obvious if someone's going to join up with you after you've got a few? Sure, but it at least seems like they have a good reason to want to do it. Bethesda has improved on the endlessly samey caves of Skyrim, and the locations you'll run across in Boston actually often feel new and different to some extent. Additionally, the bigger locations tend to have unique enemies with some extent of personality, and most have a terminal nearby their corpse that for some reason they kept their diary in. Why a bloodthirsty raider would want to write down his dastardly deeds in a terminal that can apparently be hacked by a novice is beyond me, but it's there. But enough good stuff, let's move on to the bad. The first thing that people who played all of the previous games will probably notice immediately is this. It's not really a Fallout game in many ways. Gone are the voiceless protagonist and wealth of interesting, intelligent, or dumb, and humorous dialogue options, replaced with a 4-choice dialogue wheel and a character who, no matter what, is at heart a formerly military suburban dad, and therein lies one of my greatest personal dislikes. Yes, in other Fallout games you had a background, but none so explicit as this. In the opening cutscene, your past is laid out. You're a former military soldier who lives a happy life with his wife and son now. Once you're on your own, wandering the wasteland, you're still a suburban ex-military dad. There's no backstory to make up, nothing new, nothing unique. The dialogue wheel doesn't help because it's always extremely black and white. The 4 options always boil down to one of the following. 1. The question. Fuck you or fuck me? 2. I'm sarcastic and witty. Fuck you. 3. Fuck you, I'm a huge dickhead for no reason. And 4. Hello, I am Wasteland Jesus here to cleanse you of your sins. Now, those might not be so bad if it weren't for the fact that your character is predetermined. How am I supposed to feel okay about acting like a huge asshole when for the entire intro of the game I'm set up to be the perfect father, husband, and all-around American man? Whereas the previous Fallout games left you open, and you didn't have to feel guilty about role-playing an asshole because, hey, in your headcanon your character had always been one. It's not the same with Fallout 4, and that's a shame. Additionally, the game is much more combat-oriented than any other game in the series. All across the map are enemy placements ranging from 5-man encampments to 30 or 40 mob cities. Now, since the combat isn't terrible, I don't mind having to do it, but it's hard not to notice that the fighting has never been the main focus of the Fallout games, at least not for me. For me, the Fallout games were about discovering new settlements and people, learning about them and how they had survived, and enjoying my time with them. Yes, I'd go kill this and that on blank quest, but it was never the main draw of the game for me. The main draw for me lay in finding out more about this amazing and unique universe and alternate timeline that I was putting myself in. Fallout has always been the Bethesda series for me that, unlike the Elder Scrolls, had easily memorable characters and stories. Fallout 4 takes some, if not most of that away, which is quite sad, honestly. Yes, there are some memorable characters, but they're far and few between. And in between every one you have to fight through 5 or 10 raider encampments and an endless supply of supremely annoying irradiated insects. Also, as a side note off of that, the enemy placement in this game really bugs me. Fallout always had certain places for certain enemies. Robots, ghouls, super mutants, raiders, rad roaches, and mole rats, they all had a unique location that was eye-catching. If you walked into a scientific compound, you could bet your ass you'd be dealing with some mechanical enemies. It made sense in the game world, and it let the player know what to expect. Fallout 4 looks at that premise of sensible world building and goes, nuke that fucker. Within running distance of Fallout 4, you'll find a brewery overrun by raiders, a water treatment plant inhabited by super mutants, and a plethora of feral ghouls in an abandoned car factory. And if you think I'm joking, no, that actually did happen to me. In fact, in the gameplay you're watching right here, you find synths and super mutants fighting. It makes the world feel like a clusterfuck. There's no sense of the raiders have carved out some territory here, or oh boy, this looks like a place where some feral ghouls would be. It's fine to have inter-faction skirmishes, but there's no place that any faction has carved out for itself. Oftentimes, the game will unceremoniously transition you from one enemy type to another without it even making any sense. In one of the first missions, I went from fighting raiders in a city to walking into a factory 1 block down filled with feral ghouls. Are you really telling me that the raiders that owned that city, who were just outside of that very building who almost chased me into it, hadn't taken care of that? It feels like the world building wasn't so much thoughtful as it was something like this. People like to see objective markers pop up, so let's put one every 50 feet. Sounds good, but what are we gonna have in it? Well, let's spin the wheel of enemies and see. However, there has been this strange trend of people saying that Fallout 4 isn't an RPG. It is. That's undoubtedly true. However, it's also undoubtedly true that it's much less of one than its predecessors. In short, Fallout 4 puts less emphasis on all the things in the world that used to make Fallout Fallout, and instead emphasizes the fact that yup, you're playing another open world game and there are lots of things for you to do, which should make you happy because if there's one thing Skyrim proved, it was that if you fed enough people reskinned caves that had absolutely no meaning, they'd be happy eventually. Fallout 4 also falls prey to the same, I should really be worried more about this, and Wait, you're telling me nobody cares about that? Caveats that all Bethesda games fall prey to. Within my first 10 hours, I was a prominent member of 2 different highly ranking and esteemed societies in the game, and nobody gave so much as a glowing mole rat's arse. In addition, the main story lacks any sense of urgency, to the point that I actually realized 12 hours in I had forgotten about it, and what I was supposed to be doing in it completely. Finally, I suppose that I need to talk about graphics. Listen, I'm not a huge graphics guy. Hell, I gamed on an iMac until recently because I was too cheap to buy a good PC. If you think that I care all that much about graphics, you're wrong. That being said, the game does look noticeably outdated when compared to its recent open world brethren like The Witcher 3, Mad Max, and MGS5, despite having fairly high recommended specs. The game's texture qualities are all over the place, as you can see. The footage you're seeing is on high, and here's a little tidbit of texture work that I thought was particularly atrocious on the screen right now. Low-res and high-res textures are unceremoniously mashed together throughout the world without seemingly any regard, and it looks quite jarring when you get up close to anything. The armor and weapons are some of the worst offenders, often looking eye-bleedingly bad even at the higher settings. That said, the game world doesn't look bad, and the environmental effects are a treat to behold. Although I feel like the game should look better, it certainly doesn't look as bad as a lot of people are saying. But what I think Fallout 4 does least well is be interesting, and that's what this all boils down to. Ultimately, Fallout 4 provides you with a lot of things to do, but it doesn't provide you with a world rich enough to make you want to go do them. It's the exact same issue Skyrim struggled with, and if you look at any forum or review site, it's the exact same problem people are having with Fallout 4. What makes this scenario perhaps different is that before Fallout 4, Fallout always did have that rich world, far more than the Elder Scrolls did in my opinion. Fallout 4 is a good game. Hell, it might even be a great game, but in a genre that's constantly being innovated and improved upon because every goddamn studio is making one, the fact that Fallout 4 is essentially a modded post-apocalyptic Skyrim that lets you build houses for your companions makes it feel notably outdated if you've been playing any other more recent open-world games. Fallout 4 doesn't live up to the hype, and it's hard to argue that it ever could have. It's a good game world that inspires great moments, but ultimately fails at being a great Fallout game when you look past its aesthetic. Everything you'll do in Fallout 4 you will have done somewhere else. It doesn't innovate in any notable way, and honestly, if it weren't for the game's aesthetic, it would just be mediocre to me. And that is why Fallout 4 may be a great game, but it certainly won't be my game of the year. That will be reserved for things more innovative or groundbreaking like The Witcher 3 or Bloodborne. Thank you all so much for watching, and leave a sub whether or not you enjoyed the video, because if you don't, I'll smash you with my T45D power armor. Until next time, GM out.